Let's go to the pre-step.
When I'm in conversations, I might be able to help them. And then just not knowing, I don't know, how to kind of segue from like, oh, here's this woman that we're just casually having a conversation and she's starting to tell me some things she's struggling with. And okay, how do I segue into this thing that kind of seems like it's heading towards a friendship? But now I'm like, oh, I feel like I could help you. And kind of like that no man's land where I'm just like, quiet, step back, or give them everything they need.
I appreciate this because it really speaks to going back to boundaries. And what always supports with boundaries is language. And that's so, so key that we actually really want to write it down. And it's so key because as HSPs, even though one of our strengths is that we're excellent with language, it is a strength that must be honed. When that strength isn't yet honed, we default to going quiet. And we tend to go quiet because we're so used to just being that silent sponge. It's very habitual place to default to. Or we go to the other extreme, because then we start running our mouth and it's like a faucet that you can't turn off, right? It's like, because you have that visionary strength, you see what would be helpful for this person, you know that you could help them, like it just starts coming out. And either the other person is like, wow, this has been amazing. I'm going to go off and I'm going to use everything that you shared. Thank you so much. See you at the next play date. Or they're like, I don't know what just happened. I think maybe something important happened here, but I'm not really sure. And they just kind of like go foggy and missing and a little like, you know, not understanding the value of what was just shared with them. So boundaries is about intentional language. The more you can give words to what is happening in the moment, and specifically what you desire to have happen in the moment, that is you in your leadership role, that is you in your royal advisor role. So for example, in this type of situation, the opportunity presents itself, you start hearing something that indicates that you could probably help this person, and you give a gracious interruption. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just need to interrupt you for a moment. What I'm about to share could potentially sound weird and awkward, and let me just tell you that is far from my intention. So what you're sharing is actually directly connected to the work that I do. And before we go any further, I just want to be clear. Is this something you would like to explore together professionally? Or would you rather we just kind of stay in a friend zone? This is going to help me know which hat to put on in this moment. That's exactly where we want to be. And emphasizing for yourself, getting clear on what you are willing to offer as a friend, and especially a new friend, versus in a professional relationship. And that clarity and diving into that inquiry will be extremely valuable as well. And it just helps you to know, right? And including if the person's like, oh, I'm really just interested in chatting, that when it goes beyond just chatting, that you can then more easily identify it and then also language it again. Once again, like, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I just have to interrupt you for a second because like I so want to talk to you about this. But if I'm honest, to really dive into this, it's kind of me putting on more of my professional hat. And I just don't want there to be any weirdness or awkwardness between us. So, you know, again, I'm so happy to like set up a time to talk about that as a professional, you know, as a friend. I kind of feel best if I stay in this zone. I don't want to cross any lines that then suddenly, you know, have a potential impact on our friendship.
So I don't have a problem asking or inviting people. I could do it in an email, I could do it in a post, I could do it from a platform or live. It's the cold calling type aspect that I withdraw from. For instance, like I have probably a couple thousand friends on Facebook that I may not know. To go individually and approach them and offer something, that's where I withdraw. That's where I have the issue. I could even pick up the phone and call someone I know that I haven't spoken to in a while, do some energy management and get that done. So like right now, I'm committed to reaching out to 5 people per week to do this. And I completely broke down in that process, where for weeks it just did not get done. Because I feel like my old network marketing days of cold calling. And if I feel like if I had a way maybe, or a language or something that I can use where I'm not just saying, hey, I have this, can you use it? If not, tell me who can. Do you know somebody? And then it takes me back to childhood trauma of begging, asking all the time for something and getting a negative reaction.
Amazing, amazing insights and amazing distinction. So glad you brought this forward. And again, it comes back to what I shared, which is as HSPs, we thrive in genuine relationships.
Yes.
So for the situation that you're describing, Ilona, it's like we need a pre-step to the pre-step, which is about formulating a connection. So we'll go with the 1,000 people that you're connected to on Facebook, but not absolutely even sure about who these people really are. The pre-step would be to reach out with some type of communication along the lines of like, hey, I see we're connected on Facebook, but I don't really feel connected to you. Would you be interested in just setting up a time to like chat or message back and forth so I can hear more about what's been up with you? I can share what's been up with me. We can even do maybe just a little bit of tracking to how we're connected in the first place. And this is really a version of then that celebratory announcement letter, but even the pre-step to the celebratory announcement letter. It's like just first getting clear, does it make sense for us to actually be connected? And if the person says, yes, I'd love to connect, or I'd love to message back and forth, or it's so good to hear from you, or I actually remember when we met, blah, 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 then we can explore from there. So will it take a little bit more time? Yes. But most likely, will you then make those 5 connections per week? Probably, right? And then you can loop back to who is meant to have a further conversation with, right? To develop and to go from there. Again, we are great at making genuine, intimate connections and relationships. Now, the key is, and this is where we're going to go from here, the key is, again, the deliberate and intentional use of language and being in the leadership role. driving the car, being in the driver's seat, making no assumptions. Why are we here? What are we looking to accomplish and achieve? And how are we going to go about doing that? Who wants how much from who, right? Being very, very clear for yourself about how this process runs and what you need in order for it to run well. Some of the clarity around what you need in order for the system to run well will only come from being willing to actually do it. Back to good enough, willing to improve, coupled with that daily core practice. So for those of you who are like, you know, basically your concerns we're speaking to, I don't have the perfect system all in place. And if I don't have the perfect system all in place, I don't feel like I can move forward, and I question whether I'm doing it right. There is no right. There are only those core elements that I already mapped out for you. Everything else is up for improvement. So then we're looking at the understanding about these core components, core elements of the selling success conversation, pre-step to support in bringing prospects into the selling conversation, and the through thread is using our HSP strength of being excellent with language to remain in the driver's seat, including clear boundaries. Why we're here, what we're here to do, and how we're going to do it. So with that in mind, the actually asking for money should not be a surprise at any point in the conversation. Going back to that original frame that you set at the start of the conversation. Again, in my language, that's the setting and sharing of intentions. And if you're using the sharing of intentions, you need to ensure that you are languaging, we are here to see if the work that I do makes sense for you. And if yes, to set you up with next steps of investment, or whatever adaptation is needed. We're not here just having a friend-to-friend conversation. So then when it gets to the moment where then it's about enrollment, it's not a surprise. We've clearly communicated what we're doing here together. I shared it at the beginning. I shared it again when I asked you about taking next steps, if that is something that you would like to explore. And then when we take those next steps, directly sending the link for them to get started, or anybody who needs a bit more of an in-depth process, and we use the two-part of the P2P process. If you do use that second call format as I teach it, you reiterate the intention at the beginning of the second call. So we know why we're here. You go through the second call elements, which are a repeat, gap, vision, and next steps. So then next steps are about, okay, so now we set you up to get started. Your prospect is very clear on your packages. They're very clear on the investment because you've shared that with them in their program, in your program guide. So then it's about, okay, great. Everything that I'm hearing says that you're clear that the mama package is the best next step for you. Fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. I see that package really serving and supporting you because of X, Y, and Z reasons from my Royal Advisor expertise. So the next thing we need, the last thing that we need is, what is the credit card that you'd like to use to get started? By actually working with those core elements and setting up a structure, either following the P2P process as I teach it or adapting for yourself, that when it gets time for that final step for your prospect to invest, it's not a surprise and it doesn't need to be a big deal. It literally is just that final detail.
So at what point would you abort the process? I don't know if that's specific enough of a question, but if somebody says, I'm not sure if I want to invest, so I would still support, invite them to the P2P and hear their gap and their vision. And that could be potential concern for them, and support them with the exercise, and then they come back and yeah, so they're still bringing that, and I could support them with that, but I'm just wondering if I need to abort the process sooner.
It's a great, great question. And it's not a black and white answer.
Yeah.
But it is a place where our HSP strength of intuition really is available to support us with, what I refer to as intuitive discernment. So if you have someone who's already entering into the process with some resistance, you definitely don't want to ignore that. As you just so beautifully described, you want to bring it right into the process, right? I'm always of the mind that, especially with the way that I teach selling and the way that I teach the P2P process, for us as HSPs, that there is always the potential for transformation through the process. And that any prospect is always going to, well, let's say probably like 90% of prospects are going to enter into the process already in resistance. So we can count on that, because that's just human nature, right? As human beings say they want to change, but then they don't actually really want to do the work to get that change, right? So there's always going to be preconceived notions that everyone is entering into the selling conversation with. All prospects are entering into the selling conversation with. Part of our Royal Advisor role through those process elements that I described for you is to find out more. What is actually going on for this person? And can we actually really help them? Including, what part does their resistance play in why they aren't getting the change that they say it is that they want? Everyone is going to default to the socialized belief that they don't have the money. But the skillful, the masterful, the Royal Advisor opportunity is to actually be ready to lead through it. And so that's the same approach for any of us in selling. If before entering into the selling conversation, a prospect is like, yeah, I'm interested, but I just don't think that I can afford it. You have to really tap into your HSP intuition and maybe even ask some pre-qualifying questions. Oh, well, tell me why you would be interested in this. Let's just take money off the table for a moment. I'm just really curious. Why might this be of interest to you? And then you're going to hear something through deep listening that's going to tell you like, oh, there's a spark of potential here. This does make sense for us to go into the conversation. Or they're actually just giving me lip service and they're actually not really interested at all. They just don't want me to feel bad. Or any other time through the process using your intuitive discernment of what's really going on for the person. Where we are equipped to guide prospects through resistance is when there really is that desire. You can hear it, you can feel it, but the prospect can't see the way to make it happen. And then that's where we can step in to help and support and to guide and to lead. That person may or may not be able to cross the threshold, but that's a very different conversation. That's a very different process than someone who's basically got their arms crossed and it's like, yeah, convince me. It's like, well, we don't need to waste our time, right? And what I'll offer here is this goes back to the daily core practice. Because there's a difference between intuitive discernment from a place of groundedness, confidence, and clear knowing of the value that you have to offer versus your own shadows of overprotection.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to be rejected, so I'm going to reject this prospect first.
Mhm.
No, that's not what intuitive discernment is.
Yeah.
Intuitive discernment is, let's really explore what's going on here. I'm going to give us a recap. Selling as an HSP is always an inner and outer process. You must tend to the inner with deep commitment to consistency to support with effectiveness in the outer. With the outer, the selling conversation is never perfect. It's about those core key elements and components to a selling conversation, and always being willing to ask more so that you don't assume and you can effectively discern. And using our HSP strength of being excellent with language to name any awkward situations, clarify any confusion, directly invite and ask into the official conversation and into official next steps. The cherry on top, you possess traits, attributes, and strengths that very few other people A, have, or B, have honed. That is your royal advisor, business miracle cape that you put on every time you go into a selling conversation. And remember that you are there to lead. Breath in and let it out.